Hey, Cody, really appreciate you jumping on with us today. We know you're busy, probably prepping for open enrollment, writing insurance. So we really, appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us.
Absolutely, Sean.
Yeah, so Amir and I are going to kind of just talk about your business and, what you're doing. For the people watching this video, maybe you can just explain like what business are you in? What products are you selling? What do you do, Cody?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a licensed health and life insurance producer. 99% of my business is based around health insurance. Um, as far as the products that I focus on, the majority of my sales usually come through the Manhattan Life affordable choice plans, and their, dental and ancillary products as well. I also have had a good amount of success with, products from carriers like Iron Health and Population Science Management, LifeX as well. But
Yeah.
there's
Nice.
there's a bit of a range. I am also FFM certified in order to assist those clients that need help with their ACA plans.
Yeah, okay. Awesome.
That's good. That's good. A lot of agents that we work with, especially on the private health side, they don't seem to like to sell the ACA side of the business too much, or they don't have much knowledge into it. I'm curious, why don't you, can you touch base on that a little bit? Like, what portion of your book, when you're calling private health clients, do you sell ACA to? Like, what is the portion, and how does that look like for you? And just curious.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that 2%, about 2% of my book of business is focused on ACA clients. The way that I explain this, and usually do it during an introduction, during a discovery call, I tell them 98% of my business is based around private insurance. I am also certified to help people with ACA plans, but it's only about 2% of my clients that have chronic medical issues or ongoing health problems where they wouldn't really qualify for any more of the popular plans, and that leaves that as their only avenue. Um, I in doing so, I feel like it's a great segue into asking the medical questions in order to determine what plan that lead might qualify for. But then also, it shows that the ACA is a good source of guaranteed issue plans that is going to be available for people if they do have those pre-existing conditions.
I see. So you're using it almost as part of your pitch to kind of say, "Hey, I sell ACA plans as well. You gotta, I'm curious what medical conditions you have," and then you use that as well to kind of see if they qualify for the private health stuff, huh?
Absolutely.
I see.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask you about, where we typically ask people about when we're doing these interviews, is like where you got started out. Although I think we got started out together. I think you were technically on my team when we first started, right? A couple of years ago, maybe. What was this?
Absolutely.
2 years ago?
Yeah, so I licensed in December of 2023 and began, buying leads and working full time in the business in
Okay.
January of 24.
Yeah, and I guess around that time that you got started, though, it wasn't very much longer. We had launched Next Level, and now you're under a different team, and I'm not really selling. I haven't really sold much, especially the private stuff in a couple of years. But I think you worked, yeah, you were working in other industries, and you were just looking to kind of become an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly. So before leaving, so before joining the insurance industry, I had a successful 12-year career in the commercial construction industry, eventually leaving as a superintendent. There was several things that, contributed to that transition, but mainly the focus on worker safety for some of the employers that I was working for didn't really align with my personal beliefs.
Oh,
Um, so that
yeah,
created some friction, and started looking for, exactly like you mentioned, just a position where I had a little bit more autonomy and personal freedom over the way that I spent my day and the way that I was able to treat the people I work with and the clients that I work for.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you work from home, right? A home office now.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty sweet. You can work from anywhere with your laptop and but you're based out
Yep,
of Salt Lake City, right? Salt Lake City area?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, when towards the tail end of my time as a supervisor in construction, often leaving very, very early in the morning, not getting back until late at night. I was, averaging usually between a 55 and 70-hour work week.
Mm.
I realized every day that I left, left my house to go to the job site, that the worst part of my day was leaving my dogs at home. And so when
Yeah.
making this transition, it was a high priority to find a position where I no longer had to do that. And
Yeah.
there's been
Definitely.
no turning back since.
Was your first dive into insurance, was it straight into health or were you selling another product first?
No, yeah, I had a very different dive into the industry than most of the people that were on that team that Sean alluded to. A lot of people had transitioned from 5 to 25 years of selling primarily life insurance to transitioning to health. My transition was straight into health insurance and didn't have any prior knowledge or experience with any insurance intimately with any insurance products before that.
Yeah.
That is rare. I would say most agents we come into have definitely their first step is life and they get super burnt out, making $300-400 a day. And then that's why they transition over to the health side.
Absolutely. That
Yeah,
was
speak Oh, go ahead.
one part of the experience in the construction industry that I feel like set me up for success in the health insurance side of things was, as a supervisor out in the field, I had at, some points 25 self-performed craft workers who reported directly to me. And a lot of those kids, a lot of those were younger kids straight out of high school or fresh off of their LDS mission who had never had to set up employer benefits before. Where I had some tenure with that company and was in a supervisory role, I had a good idea of how the benefits worked. And, of course, HR isn't going to come out into the field one at a time and onboard these new employees as they come in. So I kind of had the decision that they could have either left them alone to figure it out like I had to, or I could lend my knowledge and minor amount of expertise to help them, find the benefits that were going to be the best fit for them and or their family. So that I think provided some good foundational knowledge that I had a good way of communicating some of these abstract insurance concepts in layman's terms, especially to, more of a blue collar style person.
Yeah, that's nice. That's kind of a good blend of experiences that I'm sure you could offer to other small businesses, like because you've been on that side of, hey, I work for this company. Nobody understands these plans. Nobody understands how their insurance works. And you were helping people while you were there understand their insurance. And now you understand it on such a more fundamental level. I'm sure you can bring that same level of expertise if you were to write plans for a small business. It's like, hey, not only am I going to sell you guys this stuff, but I'm willing to sit down because I know there's a big gap in service from the employer side. I'm willing to spend the time and do those, kind of training and support, answer questions to those employees. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. And that experience, and over my journey in the construction industry, I spent time working for a large local employer, general contractor that had a great plan that was, local based around the local medical systems and costed us very little out of our paychecks. I also spent time working for a large national developer that their benefits were based more around East Coast providers and facilities, and you didn't have great coverage
Mm,
out here. I also had times where I worked for smaller employers that didn't offer any benefits, and I was self-insured for periods of time.
hmm
So that time in that industry also contributed to me knowing a little bit about um, what to value, what to ask people, when they are shopping for insurance because I've experienced just a little bit of everything myself personally.
Yeah.
Nice. What would you say is your what would you say is your current client base? Like who do you talk to the most? You talking to a lot of business owners, talking to a lot of individuals? Like what does your current client base look like on a daily basis? And we're gonna kind of probably go into how you're getting your leads and stuff in just a second, but I guess this is what does your client base look like right now?
Absolutely. I would say probably at this point it's a solid mix, probably a 50-50 ratio of small business owners or self-employed individuals versus individuals who work a W-2 job. I say often on my calls that, when I started my business, I used to advertise exclusively to self-employed people and small business owners because I figured that was the biggest portion of the market that did not have access to affordable group health insurance. Um, and it really, started to blow my mind very early on how many two, three, five calls a week that I would get from somebody who their employer didn't offer insurance, or they wanted to charge an arm and a leg for those benefits, or the
Hmm.
benefits weren't very good, or sometimes a combination of the two.
Yeah,
So
that point that you make is we've seen that in advertising. So when me and Sean are running ads, the number one thing we always get asked is, are you marketing to self-employed people? Are you marketing to 1099? It's like, well, yeah, we are, but that's not the only market. Like there's still a whole nother large portion of the audience that wants insurance that doesn't like their current plan, but like you said, they're W-2, they're employed. I mean, they could even be on ACA with the high deductible, and maybe they want somebody to supplement their current plan. So me and Sean has always thought that was a huge mistake by marketers to just focus on self-employed. Self-employed, that's always been the language. Look, are you self-employed? Are you 1099? We have a plan for you. So we still do, we mix that in, but it's not definitely not our core focus as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because like when Amir and I used to work in a corporate job together that provided insurance, and it wasn't especially good, and it was expensive, even though they subsidized some of it. And I don't think we didn't know at the time, and I don't think most people know. So like if you have major medical coverage through your work, you can't just go get your own plan on the marketplace. Like you'll be denied. So a lot of people just think they're stuck when really there's private health plans. Like if I would have known at the time, I probably would have got off that. So it's like you can actually cancel your work insurance or not take that and then just go get private health insurance and there's no penalization, no penalty, I should say.
absolutely. And I'm sure that, this will also kind of jump us forward a step or two, but in warm market social media posts that I've done, one of my most successful posts was essentially uh, showing people that you don't have to accept your employer sponsored plan. You can
Mm,
shop around for options, and kind of gave a list of frequently asked questions or issues that that post was among my top performers of bringing in new clients from warm market social media groups.
I'll talk to Sean's point because we're all in the industry now. We're all in insurance. And obviously, all this stuff now to us is like we assume that everybody else knows this stuff. But I'm with Sean. When I was working corporate job, I didn't even know that there was plans outside the work. Like I had no idea. And our plans, they were like $8,000, $9,000 deductible. And I never used the insurance. All of us look pretty healthy. I'm sure we don't have to use that insurance that often. But people that do have to use insurance, and they have $8,000 deductible and they have a work plan, it's practically, depending on your salary, that's almost unusable. So if they knew about pairing that with like a indemnity plan or hospital plan, whatever, and they could reduce that deductible anytime they go to doctors, that yeah, that's I don't think that's common knowledge. Like
I fully agree with you, Amir.
not
And
even close.
to complement that point, when I spoke to my earlier career and the times that I was self-insured, that was one of the things that convinced me to go all in on this new career path. Because if you had called me at that point in time and told me that I could get insurance with no deductible or a low deductible for the rate that I currently pay, I would have been a one call close. So I
Yeah.
mean that amongst anything, learning the products and the price points and the amount of people they provide a better fit for was one of the things that, kept any trepidation out of my mind while jumping into this brand new world.
Yeah.
Definitely.
One of the things that Amir and I wanted to talk to you about, and you alluded to it earlier, was how you're generating business, reaching out online, reaching out to business owner channels, and that is I mean, that's really set you apart. And I know you've been able to so I'm curious, what are you doing, and what would you recommend other agents do, and how much business are you generating through these activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the to provide a little bit of backstory, right? When we first joined the business, we had a very strong lead source. That was kind of the one of the big buy-in points for the IMO that we were associated with. And when that started to weaken over time and no longer became readily available, um, I chose to start spending a little bit more time on social media. And some of this might be unique to Utah and might not be as prevalent in other states. But there is a big entrepreneurial spirit in this state, and there's a lot of Facebook groups built around small business owners, allowing them to network and collaborate and teach each other, learn, buy each other's services, and advertise those services. So I found a couple of those groups and started just engaging and trying to add value and try to bring educational posts up and boost other business owners in that space up at the same time and share with them what was working for me. Um, that at that point in time was a massive boost to my business, and probably about 80% of the policies I was writing came directly from either those groups, whether it was me posting about my services and having somebody reach out, or seeing somebody else post, hey, I'm in need of health insurance, what broker do you guys use, what options are out there, and then commenting on that post, following up, booking an appointment, seeing if any of the products were a good fit, or um, and taking the time. I think that helped not only my sales at the time, but my sales process overall. While I've always strived and endeavored to be as honest and available as possible, while discussing, policies, when 8 out of 10 people that you're signing up are your neighbors, you definitely want to keep everything as above board and make sure that they are happy with the product that they are
Yeah.
applying for.
Or they could go post in that group and be like, don't work with this guy.
Absolutely. So that did prove very successful for to be a very successful lead source for a solid 6 months. Ultimately, I evaluated the process, and I do think that I jumped in both feet first and was spending a lot of time on social media, constantly striving to create creative posts and constantly trying to be the first one to comment when a post came up in search of health insurance.
Yeah.
So I did notice, that was somewhat detrimental to, mental health, scrolling, and you had the positive feedback of constant sales without spending money on leads.
Right.
But the
Yeah.
time and energy and attention that it took ultimately caused me to kind of draw back. I still do maybe 20% of my business is warm market, but um, it still takes a little bit more work
Yeah.
than finding running your own high functioning leads that
Yeah.
leads to high self booking rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
The
might
one.
not write
Yeah.
all the premium that you want off of that, but it certainly boosts your business. So what does 20% look like for you? Right now, last several months, like if if it's giving you 20% in a month, how many policies are you writing a month?
Um, I don't know if I have those numbers readily available, but say I'm averaging maybe one warm market sale a week, one
Yeah.
to two.
Yeah.
That's
About one
pretty
a
good.
week. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
free lead source. I mean, it is trading time. It is a definitely it sounds like a time suck, but it's a free lead source. It just takes building up your rapport inside of a group. And I think it's good to
absolutely.
note that you can't just hop into any group and just start blasting away advertisements. Like you're gonna get kicked out of the group. You gotta, like you said, add value, engage. That does sound crazy though. To like as soon as somebody posts, you're on it. Like you have to be like quick. That does sound a little stressful for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, you
that
might
is a
just
very
check the
true.
page a few times a day, and some
Yeah,
some groups have rules against advertising and some don't. So if you're
yeah,
in a different state, and I would go survey all the different sites that are, or all the different web Facebook pages and see what their rules are, and just abide by those rules. But I think another thing, Cody, if I'm not mistaken, is you don't really spam. You do like more creative things. Like what do you do, and what do you post if you're posting something new in those pages?
Well, something that added a good mix to my posts. So, you had the aforementioned posts that come to take an educational approach, but another advertising source, albeit not a very successful one, um, led to sponsoring local events. So in my first year in the
yeah,
business, I learned a lot of valuable lessons about what advertising sources do and do not work for me or for this business. So, like I mentioned, if you had called me on a any given Sunday and told me I could have got this policy for this price, I would have been all in. That led me to become very aggressive with my advertising dollars. So, I mean, whether it was sponsoring a charity golf tournament and having a tent at a hole there, or a local entrepreneurs breakfast event with speakers, there was multiple avenues that I tried and ultimately did not find them very successful, but that did lead to more content. Um,
Yeah,
Pictures of
good
me
point.
and the
mhm,
setup at the golf tournament, or I paid to put a new awning up at a local VFW in exchange for putting their, they've got a stand there that has my brochures and business cards,
Hmm.
um, and went up to visit to see that the construction had completed and just had the absolute one of the best genuine afternoons of my life chatting with those veterans and hearing their stories in the canteen attached to the VFW, and realizing that positive impact and then sharing that across those social media channels.
Yeah, it's huge. You've also posted content where you've helped people, right? You're not saying like, "Hey, save money on health insurance." You're like, "Hey, I just saved this person or this business owner. This is what we did for them,"
Thank
which
you.
is a
Yes,
lot more interesting, right?
that is a great reminder. Not only did I generate my own posts where, say, every quarter I would go calculate how much I had saved to find out what the average amount that I was saving a client was. I would post that situation. And also, I would repost in a lot of those warm market groups. I would get really positive reviews of people shouting me out and say, "Hey, if you are in the market for health insurance, reach out to Cody Capson. I had a $5,000 deductible and I was paying $700 a month for. Now I have no deductible and I'm paying 350. I'm couldn't be happier."
Yeah,
And so I would take that and reuse that content from time to time.
that's awesome. Yep.
yeah. That's smart. That's gonna get you the best lead quality. I mean, those are laydowns. You know, if somebody calls you off of that, and you're not selling that. I mean, that's crazy. Those are gonna be such easy sales.
Absolutely. It's the closest thing to a referral, which was also a
Yeah.
good big strength of that. The warm market was, probably a higher consistent amount of referrals than you would attain from most other lead sources.
Well, while we're on lead sources, let's walk through your lead journey a little bit. I know at one point you were buying leads, and now you're running your own ads. Why don't you walk us through that journey and kind of where you're at now and why you think it's, if you have any recommendations for agents on why they should or maybe shouldn't be doing it? I'm curious what that looks like, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely. So those aforementioned strong leads that were there when I started in the business, they were valuable in a lot of ways, but the one thing that they lacked was transparency. I didn't know when that lead came into me what the ad they saw that caused them to be interested enough to click and ultimately find their way into my CRM. So as that source started to die down, I transitioned, a lot of my focus into the warm market sources. I did try several other lead sources during that time, but the proof of concept was not there virtually immediately. And so, I've transitioned into the all of my energy and focus being on the warm market, which was full transparency and um, full authenticity. And I knew exactly where each person who was booking on my calendar, where they came to me from and what, got their attention. So as you two started up the process of managing ads for your clients, ultimately it was a no-brainer for me because I'm running my own ads without all of the stress of running my own ads. So I not only have, control over what is being put out there and can, make sure that it is in line with the policies that I'm actually selling and the values that I have. But then when somebody comes to me from one of those ads, I know exactly what it was that caught their eye and grabbed their attention, and I can then go reinforce that with uh, the plan offerings that I have.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So
So
really just the transparency part of it has been valuable to you. You can see exactly what the messaging is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there has to be a little bit of a mindset shift from going to being a person who is buying leads and you're choosing, okay, do I want 20 or 40 this week? Do I want to spend 500 or $1,000? What states do I want them in? There is a bit of a transition to running your own leads. You are not going to maybe have that credit system that if there you have a bad number slip through, you take a small financial hit if you're never able to get a hold of that person. Or if you're if there's any sort of issue with your account online, it could cause your ads to be down for several days, and then you've got to work to get that back up. But again, ultimately, it is uh, I've been running ads through Next Level for about 13 months at this point, and there is a ramp up process. It's not just opening a fire hose, right? You've got to take the time to lay a solid foundation before you're going to get the solid results. But at this point, I close an average of 10 leads from that source a month, and also I've turned that into a really good referral source as well. I almost, at this point, I get more referrals through my next level clients than I do from even those warm market sources.
Mm.
oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. How has running your own ads been for the success of like building up your Atlas brand? Has that helped a lot? Like running all the ads through Atlas, is that do you think that's made you more successful having that brand and being able to push that marketing dollars towards your own campaigns and brands versus buying leads and say it goes to somebody else's account?
I believe so. I mean, and that was a personal choice that I made very, very early on upon entering the business. I think, if I was licensed in January, I started my company, Atlas Health and Life, by March. And, it took some time and attention from other aspects of the business. I maybe wasn't dialing as much as I could have been or selling quite as much as I could have been at that time. But it was important to me as a newcomer in the industry, to feel like I had an established brand that was strong and not going anywhere anytime soon. So uh, I didn't want to be constantly emailing clients from my ccapson@gmail.com. I
Right.
wanted to have a brand, a bit of a reputation, a website, and not only did the next level CRM help facilitate a lot of those at a much lower cost than I would have anticipated, um, but there was definitely a pride in working with a graphic designer to create my logo, working with an attorney to make sure my business was set up in the same way,
Mm,
that I was not going to be one of those, say, 93% of the agents that don't make it out of their first year. I
hmm
was going to set up an investment into myself, my business, and my brand that was going to be something that my clients could trust would be around for years to come.
Nice. Yeah, that's a fantastic way of thinking about it. And you're right, many agents don't. Yeah.
I mean, you're taking it pretty seriously. I love the Atlas brand. I mean, you've obviously put a lot of work into it, a lot of effort. And a lot of agents that come on, I feel like they have a hard time discerning between the insurance business. It's an actual business because it's such a low cost, such a low barrier of entry. You go pass a test, pay a couple licenses, and you get your doors are open and you're up and running. Well, what would you say, Cody, is something that sets you apart from other agents in your day to day? Like, what's making you successful that you've seen other agents maybe struggle with, and what advice do you have for them?
And for those that are watching too, I mean, Cody's mentioned some of his sales, but I mean, you're the top salesperson in your group. And I mean, I see some of your activity, but I mean, how much are you writing on a monthly basis, would you say? Like past several months or 6 months or a year, however far back you want to go?
I would say, if I averaged over the last 3 months, I write between 25 to 35,000 of premium a week,
Hmm
That's really
um,
good.
during that time period, and that's rough. I I'm very organized in certain aspects of the business, keeping my book clean and my monthly expenses tracked. But when it comes to quantifying some of those numbers, I don't keep too close of a
Sure.
too close of an eye on it.
Yeah.
Um, Remind me where that question kind of originated.
Yeah, I was just trying to give people, they're watching this a little bit indication of like, where you're at, how much you're writing. It's like, you're talking about things not as like an average agent, but like you've built out a strong brand. You've been really thoughtful about your business the last couple of years, and you're seeing consistent success. And
Yeah,
so,
you'd asked specifically what I feel sets me apart, and so
Definitely. Yeah.
to kind of to address that a little bit more carefully, I would say a couple of things that I feel set me apart is I'm not really ever on the phone just trying to make a sale. I am on the phone to try to figure out why that person is in the market for insurance. And then based off of that, I can start to address whether or not a sell is possible. I don't feel like I never really spent too much time stressing about my script or a pitch approach, or even be too rigid about how conduct going from a discovery to a pitch to an application. I think the big thing that sets me apart from other agents that I have seen in the past is patience. A lot of the times, people who are calling me to try to find a new insurance plan, they're not looking for coverage to start up the next day. Now, some of the time that is the case, and you can treat that client accordingly. But a lot of leads that come in, or I'd say a decent amount of leads that come in, some of those people aren't looking to make a change for a month to a year from down the road, and they're being proactive about filling out their options before it's the 11th hour. And is it tough sometimes if you've had a slow week or a slow month to block an hour of time out of your day and pay this much for a lead to then know that it might not convert in a monetary sense
For a
for,
while. Yeah.
yes. But
Great point.
I think I remember one of my very first leads that she was thinking about retiring a year down the road, and I was patient and not pushy. Um, I had sold her son a policy within the next 2 days because I think in part due to my approach. If I had been short tempered or not given her the time and attention that she would have liked from that call, that likely wouldn't have been the case. So I try to, I think a big thing that sets me apart, at least from a lot of uh, agents that I'd seen early on, is not only the patience, but taking more of an educational approach and utilizing transparency wherever possible. So instead of being on the phone for with that person for a 5 minute discovery call, just long enough to figure out what their medical conditions might be and what their budget is, and then going and building one plan that's my favorite to sell that's just within $10 of their budget range, and then getting back on the phone and presenting it to them. I usually take the approach of let me show you what else is what is out there. This plan sounds like it's going to provide a good starting point. There's a step up that costs a little bit more, or a step down that costs a little bit less. Here's some of the pros and cons to this style of coverage. And then based off of any feedback, it shows me what else to pull from the portfolio to show them next if that original plan wasn't a good fit. So and I I've never once written a policy without screen sharing and walking somebody through the entire brochure beforehand.
Mm.
And you
Very
know,
cool.
You using Crankwheel for that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of very very minimal expense. Very happy that you were the very first one that showed me. And when I was thinking about joining the business, you text me a link, and within 5 seconds, where it was able to show me what was on your computer screen. So not
Yeah.
only is that super valuable for a pitch, but I also use it just on common phone calls with clients. If somebody shoots me a text and says, "Hey, I just got this EOB. Can you help me understand?" Instead of them being on the phone and looking at their EOB and me looking at my screen, I can send them. All of a sudden, they're looking at my screen as well, and I can highlight and give them a good education.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really nice. Well, it sounds like you know, and I've said this before, but you put a lot of thought into your business and you're trying to be genuine. I don't think I've heard a lot of agents, when a lot of agents talk about their success, that they would say the word patience. But it is true. And I know we were talking about this in another call earlier this week, but not everybody is ready to buy right away. The sell cycle can be a little bit longer. And if you try to get somebody to buy right now and you try to shoehorn them into your favorite policy, maybe the one that pays you the biggest commission or gives you the best carrier trip or something, probably short-sighted, right?
Fully agreed.
Well, as we
Uh,
look at kind of wrapping this up a little bit, besides, some of those tidbits, like what would be your advice for new agents starting out? Like they're struggling, they're just trying to figure out how to get going. What's your suggestion to them?
that's a great question, and I certainly wouldn't presume to be an authority on the subject, but I would say, in my experience, you need to trust the process and know that it's not going to be an overnight success. So there's going to be struggles, whether it's finding a good lead source or getting those people on the phone, or there's a million struggles that can come up as you start. But if you intend to make it in this industry, kind of almost a burn the boats mentality, right? If you don't feel like you have an escape plan, or you don't think you don't want to go back to working a full-time W-2 job or what have you, if you put your time into the business, it's going to pay off. It might not be immediately, but if you continue to put that time in day after day, week after week, then the payoff will likely be that much more exponential. If there's always something that you can be doing that will improve your business and ultimately your bottom line, whether that's constantly attending new trainings, constantly looking for new carriers to fill holes in your portfolio, um, spending the time calling and dialing old leads, spending the time practicing your pitches. There is always something that you can do that is ultimately going to make you more successful. If you just think you're going to jump in with some high grade leads day one with no practice and knock them all out of the park, that's not very likely to happen. You need to be prepared for that good lead and have good responses to their questions. Some
Mm-hmm.
of that, and it just takes time. I was walking a newer agent through my process just yesterday. Somebody in my group who was re-entering the business and needing some assistance. And I just kind of mentioned, like, my pitch. I might have been a top of a leaderboard a year ago, yes. Um, my pitch now is 50% stronger than it was just in stuff that I've learned throughout
Mm,
that year. A lot of times through my process, handling an objection or addressing an objection before it ever even arises.
mm,
Um, or I'm putting, I had a client who had a struggle, and I maybe didn't explain that part of the policy to them well enough a year ago. So now I include that in part of my educational walkthrough of the policy, so that every client, knowing going forward, knows how to get a little bit more out of their coverage because of that lesson learned that I pass on.
yeah, that's awesome. Yep.
I
So,
think a lot of people only see the success. Well, they probably see at the top of the leaderboard and like, man, I wonder how Cody's doing that. It's awesome. He's selling so much. Like, I bet I can do that. Just give me his script and I can do it. It's like, no, it's probably not as easy as that. It took you a lot of time, a lot of work to get to that, and a lot of money, a lot of patience. So it can be tough. Yeah, it can be tough for people to just, think they can plug into a system, but at the end of the day, it's practice, a lot of
Yeah,
practice. So
yeah. Well,
there's
it's
there's
awesome to
no
see you doing so well, man.
Yeah,
agreed.
absolutely. There's no one size fits all magical cure to succeed. You just have to find your own path to success, and keep it. It's going to be a constant journey, right? If I don't continue to hone myself, then eventually I probably will get left behind. But you got to continue to grow if you're going to succeed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, man, for joining. And, again, it's awesome to see you doing well. And hopefully you have a great open enrollment. It starts in a week. So hopefully you crank it up and write a lot of business over the next couple of months. But thanks again for spending time with us and giving us some insight into your business. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Very, very happy to spend the time. Both of you guys have been, a massive amount of help to me and the business. So happy to contribute back however I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Okay.
All right.
Absolutely.
Talk to you later.
See you later.